Kevin,
Kevin will not be here.
Gus,
Gus will be here late.
and Connie present.
We have a quorum.
Yep.
We do need to reorder the agenda slightly. The person who's here for item number 3 is not going to be able to come. And was there something else we needed to reorder? Was that it? I think that was it.
The minutes.
Oh, the minutes. We do not have a consent agenda for tonight. So I guess we have to vote on that. So, on reordering and amending the agenda to
the person doing item 3.
yes,
Check.
Len Erickson will not be here.
Oh, 5C.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The third one under 5.
Got it.
Yeah.
5C.
So vote to approve I move that we vote to approve the amended agenda.
I second it. Could you call the roll on that one, please?
Sure. Chris,
Okay. Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Connie, yes.
Okay. So we can move along to the next item on the agenda, which is reports from government officials. And I think Marisol is here tonight.
That's correct. Hi, everybody. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I was out a few days sick, so I'm sorry that I missed your meeting, but I did review it, and my updates for tonight are short, but I wanted to let you know that we have a Caltrans Wildfire Hazards Community Meeting coming up in collaboration with Assemblymember Berman and Senator Becker, and that will be June 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Coast office.
What
The
post
second-
Office.
Our Coast office, Supervisor.
post
Mueller.
office.
Oh, Coast Office, something. Post Office.
Okay, and then the second announcement is that I'm not sure if you're aware yet, maybe you are, but just wanted to confirm that the event honoring Lisa Ketchum has been changed for June 1st from 1 to 4, again at Supervisor Mueller's office on the Coast.
Okay, are there any questions for Marisol? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Claire, one more. The other thing is, I know that you've been waiting on a response regarding the letter in support for Assembly Bill 259. So I just have to connect one more time with Supervisor Mueller on that since I got back. So I will follow up with you, Claire, hopefully tomorrow about it, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Marisol. Are there any questions for Marisol?
See, Greg has his hand raised.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Marisol. Nice to see you again. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
We received those notifications about the update from the CRISP initiatives that were put forward. Was that something that you initiated after our meeting, that we got those updates on the initiatives that were put forward from MCC on CRISP, the notification about status on them?
I think that may have been done during the days that I was out, so I'll confirm that with my colleague Cassandra.
Okay,
Yeah.
just really what next steps are after that. I don't know if you guys have any update.
I think that they were basically notifying us that they have selected those specific projects to pursue money for.
Okay, well, they were by category, ABC, looks like.
It seems that way, but I'll confirm.
Okay, thank you.
You're assuming they're pursuing money for those? Because it didn't sound like they're on the C categories, there would be money, there would be funding for those.
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, if you could just follow up on the, some more clarification on the messages, Marisol, that would be helpful.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Greg?
Yeah, Marisol, it's great to hear we have that meeting on the fire issue with Caltrans.
Yeah.
But there's another meeting that people out here are asking for. I don't know if the supervisor's been approached directly, but I believe he has. It's the Seal Cove sliding into the ocean problem. And the people who are upset, and MWSD not providing a proper meeting facility for them. And so I'm wondering, do you know if the supervisor has been asked to provide a meeting for a public meeting on that?
Give me one second. So what I can tell you right now is that the supervisor has been meeting with residents, mostly individually, like per household, I guess, separate cases. And then after that, there was also a discussion of a community meeting, Silco community meeting. So I think they're finalizing the date. I can confirm that. But I want to make sure and check with our chief of staff to see if the date is actually finalized, because I'm looking at an email about it. Give me one second.
Well,
So-
great. If you would let me know, and of course, let MWSD know. I assume they're going to want to attend or audit.
Well, let me confirm that, okay? Because right now I can't say yes or no. I just need to make sure.
It's okay. I'm glad it's on your radar. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Marisol.
Mhm.
I think Deborah Penrose is here from Half Moon Bay.
Good evening, everyone. There's not a whole lot to report tonight. The city is undergoing they're working on the budget is essentially what's going on. So everything else takes second place to it. We are going to be running at a deficit, but it's not a huge deficit. And one positive note is that the TOT from the hotel seems to have taken an upswing. It's not great, but it's better than was predicted, which is good news. We did have a robust discussion about the city's community. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's the city's position to give money to nonprofits every year. And last year we gave a total of 300,000. Because of the deficit, there was some concern by some council members that it should be reduced. And so we came up with a compromise vote on it, so that we are, instead of giving 300,000, we are giving 200,000. But we will also be giving an additional amount to Abundant Grace and Coastside Hope, two of our nonprofits that are really working with life-threatening and important issues in terms of life-saving things in our communities. So that discussion occurred. We are continuing to work on 555 Kelly and trying to negotiate with Mercy Housing and Alas about what we're going to be doing with that. And that's about it for me.
Thank you, Deborah. Are there any questions for Deborah? Kimberly.
Hi, Deborah. I have a question about the Caltrans, two things, the multi-asset, how is it? The Highway 1 multi-asset roadway rehabilitation project. And that, because Half Moon Bay is a stakeholder in that, do you have any update on that process? Because I understand that there have been meetings taking place, and also meetings where Half Moon Bay is a stakeholder in the Caltrans plans for the same area.
I'm not sure what area you're talking about. I don't know that
Surfers
acronym.
Beach?
Pardon me?
Surfers Beach?
Surfers Beach. No, I haven't heard anything new about that. Staff may be meeting with them, but it hasn't, council has not been made privy to any information.
Okay, thank you.
Connie?
Can you just, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said the second item was exactly on the hotel has taken an upswing. I didn't understand what you meant. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, according to Kristlyn Geit, the revenues are down this year. But in the recent several months, they have taken an upswing.
Oh,
And she feels that because of the increased advertising that the chamber is doing, that's going to be helping us. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
So
But
that's
it looks like it might be not as dire as we had thought it was going to be.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Hannah is here from Parks.
Good evening, everyone. I am just joining tonight to give a brief update about a project we'll be starting at Quarry Park in the Murata East area. This is really actually just a continuation of the work we were doing last year to dispose of all of the logs within that meadow area. A lot of that is logs that have been removed as part of prior fuel reduction work, but also a lot of the trees that had fallen down in the winter storms almost over 2 years ago now, and that we had cut and stacked on site. And so there were still some logs left over after the work we had done with the air curtain burner. And so a contractor is coming back starting Monday next week, so June 2nd, to process and chip all of the remaining logs. And so what they'll be using to do that is called a horizontal grinder, which is basically just a big wood chipper. It is, big enough and hefty enough to be able to process entire logs. Some of the smaller wood chippers can only do like small trees or wood that's up like maximum of 12 inches in diameter or so, but these horizontal grinders can do larger logs like we have on site. And so they'll be working starting on Monday. Their work hours will be 8 a.m. to about 2:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. And the work is expected to take probably about 12 working days. So they would anticipate to be done around June 17th, unless there are any delays or if the work is taking any longer. We have sent a notice on Nextdoor so that neighbors can be aware that the work is coming up, and just to be anticipating the equipment and the noise while that work's going on. And we'll also have an advisory on our website. And then another portion of what the contract will be doing is they'll also be grinding down some eucalyptus stumps that are in that area from some trees that had been cut that were hazardous or partially standing. And that will just help bring all of those stumps down to ground level, restore the kind of natural topography for that meadow area, and help improve drainage in the site. There had been some silt fencing that was erected last winter to help with erosion and drainage. And so that will also be taken down at the end of this project, because the site should be able to drain better naturally after this. All of the chips will also be remaining on site. Yeah, and so that's the update I wanted to share. I know there have been some questions about what our plans were for the remaining logs. And so I just wanted to be able to give an update that we'll be working to process what's left. And that should be done in the next couple weeks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Hannah? Chris?
Hi, Hannah. Chris Rogers here. I just wanted to ask about the extent of the chip distribution. It's a lot of chips, obviously, and wanted to understand where that's going to go and to make sure that it's not going to get out into areas that are not already disturbed by the cutting and the storage and the burning that's happened already on that site.
Yeah, so all the chips would remain in the same footprint of where we had the burner and the logs before. We wouldn't be spreading chips into any of the open meadow below the access road. We do typically limit chip depth to an average of maybe about uh, 8 to 10 inches. It's hard to get an exact depth, but if we do find that chip depth is getting in excess of that, then we'll change plans, and anything in addition we'll just have hauled off and disposed of off-site. A lot of our contractors are able to take green waste and dispose of it as part of a contract. So if that ends up being the case where we have more chips than can be spread on the ground surface there, then we would change plans and dispose of some of that excess chip material.
Is there any thought of allowing community members to take some of these chips? For their own-
Yeah, we could offer that if there is excess. Right now, the contractor's plan is to spread on site. If we find there's an excess, and we could leave a pile, send a heads up to the neighbors in the MCC that if folks want to come by and take some chips, they could. Yeah, that's certainly an option.
And just to follow up, are there plans then for how to deal with the area that is where the chips are spread in, say, next year or the year after, when those areas will be promoting weeds?
Yeah, so we certainly continue to monitor, like we do for most of our fuel reduction project areas, in areas where there's been disturbance like this, monitor for weeds that are coming back, and depending on what is growing back, determine what appropriate removal methods might be. And ultimately what we'd like to see for that area is, promoting native vegetation recruitment. If appropriate too, we may do some active replanting to help boost that along. So we certainly don't want to see it, barren, chipped, covered area in the long term, but hopefully what we see grow back is a good amount of native vegetation, and that we can mitigate any overrun of invasives.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Dan.
Was that a question?
I just hand up. Dan
Oh,
was hand
up there. Okay, Dan, please.
Yes, thank you, Hannah, for your report. I would like to offer an idea, an alternative use for some of those logs. I'm going to send a picture to the MCC, and I'll try to get you a picture also, Hannah. I was in Golden Gate Park, and there's a certain area near, I think it's called Middle Lake. And what they have is they have a pathway to walk around the lake. And in some parts of this, where the hillside starts to go up, they used eucalyptus logs just put end to end. And it was essentially like a garden border. And, it looked very nice. It looked very natural. It looked like it was a real proper use. Over time, would break down and go into the soil and enrich the soil, and etc. So that, hopefully could be considered before all the logs are destroyed. I know you're going to have an abundance of wood chips, and I just want to remind that again, in Golden Gate Park, they utilize the eucalyptus chips for certain path constructions. So, I just I'd like that the San Mateo County Parks can look kind of outside of the box and make some good use out of this. I do understand, there is not a good mix with in certain fields and et cetera, but definitely path construction is a potential use for some of the excess chips. Just got a plan where they're needed. I don't think it'll be very hard to find paths that could be upgraded a little bit in Quarry Park. So yeah, please look for a photo of mine from Golden Gate Park to kind of put the message across as far as the logs. I'll try to get a picture of chips for path construction also. I'll send that out as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'll look up for that.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Claire.
Okay. Any other government representatives here tonight? If not, we'll move on to public comment. I have a one speaker slip for public comment from Martin.
Good evening, everybody. Marty Anaya, Pacific Coast Television. Please forgive my appearance this evening. I've just been in the studio cleaning up from our wildly successful open house that we had over the weekend. And so many people from the community, from the Midcoast, from Half Moon Bay, from as far down as Pescadero, came to the studio this last weekend to celebrate community and to celebrate community media. And this is something that we do every day, as you guys well know, by covering these meetings, but it's also just one part of PE&G, public education and government communications infrastructure. Now, the reason I'm here with you tonight is that we do have a matter that is going to be before the County Board of Supervisors on June the 10th, and we're looking for your support. Long story short, the county has been a fantastic partner with PCT to help defray some of the costs. This that we're doing here this evening, if you were going to hire that out, any production company anywhere, it'd be about $1,500 per at minimum to do something like this. Of course, you guys don't pay anywhere near that. And the reason in large part is because of the way the county helps to defray those costs. The matter that we have for June the 10th regards the fact that Public Works, who we are contracted with, is up against a ceiling of what they can do on their own authority in terms of what they can expend on public education and government programming. Despite the fact that the county continues to receive funds from the cable company, Comcast specifically, those funds need to be authorized if they're going to get expended. So without getting too far into the weeds right now, I'll just say this. What we're seeking is the Board of Supervisors to extend the authority to allow PEG funding, that's public education and government funding, that comes specifically from cable subscribers to be expended on these purposes. I don't think it's a major controversial issue because that is, in fact, what those funds were intended to do. It's just that the County Public Works does not have the authorization on their signature to provide for it. And so that's the matter. We do, though, however, want to make sure that the people in our communities who are benefiting from these services do get to have their voices heard. We usually are the ones in the back recording. We're not the ones up here talking and making requests or anything of the sort. But because this is something that we feel is a very important issue and something that could have portents for the future, we did want to come up here and make you aware of it and hopefully seek the support in the form of a letter and or by appearing at the supervisor meeting on June the 10th. For more detail, I want you to go to my website. I'm going to have that up by Monday of this following week. We'll have the basic TikTok of what we're talking about and about what the ask is. So again, it's pacificcoast.tv. If anybody wants to email me directly or you want to contact me directly, it's martin@pacificcoast.tv. And it's 650-355-8001. That rings me directly no matter where I am. You can find me. I do appreciate you and I appreciate everything that the Midcoast Council does. You guys serve as a very vital conduit, not only for news and information, but for communicating to the county about what the needs are around here, which are many. And of course, we've been following all these things very carefully. and where we can want to provide some of that backbone and some of that infrastructure where AT&T and other communications infrastructure are pulling out. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Again, it's martin@pacificcoast.tv. Appreciate your time.
Martin, we usually don't respond to public comment, but
ma'am.
we don't have another meeting before the Board of Supervisors meeting, and we can't vote on a letter that isn't agendized. So what would you suggest we do? That we just write to the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, if individuals want to write
Individual.
to the Board of Supervisors, I'm going to have all that on the website just for anybody who, cannot or doesn't know how to reach out. But definitely, if you want to write letters individually, that's certainly appreciated.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, if it's okay if we ask him questions.
Sylvan?
So will you also have sort of talking points? Because one thing I think it would be useful to understand is what other purposes they would want, what other arguments are they making to spend this money somewhere else?
Sure. Yeah, we will. And I wish I could have a better answer to that specific question. I do know that the way that these funds are aggregated, right, is they come from all different parts of the county. We're just talking about those funds that would be available for the coast side. So we're not talking about Civic Center, Redwood City, or any of the rest of it. We're just talking about the funds that would be aggregated for the coast side that would be spent on our purposes here. So we can, again, underwrite all these activities and hopefully have enough money to plan for the future. I know you guys, every year, it's the same process. It's a budgetary process. You got to know what you're dealing with from year to year. Well, we're no different. We're a nonprofit, just like all these other wonderful nonprofits. And we have to know from year to year what we can do and then how we can expand and support the community more where that's possible.
Martin, I'm going to treat you like a government person because you are quasi-government sort of here. And because there are people that want to ask you some other questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Dan? Do you still have your hand up from before or is that now? Okay, Sid?
Thank you. I think it's really important for the people to try to support Marty because his company does go ahead and videotape a lot of the public meetings that we get to watch on YouTube after the fact if we happen to have missed the meeting in person when it's live. So he chatted me up the other day and said that the Department of Public Works is trying to withhold some of the PEG fees because they're having trouble with their microphone on the Board of Supervisors new chambers. And I agree that microphone is terrible, but there's no reason they should take that money from the coast side. He's not asking for all the county's money, just for the coast side. So I hope people will support and write a letter. And maybe, Marty, you could put in the chat the website to go to get that talking point issue. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah, again, thank you, Sid. Yeah, the website is pacificcoast.tv. And again, there are needs at the Civic Center, right? There are needs. One of them being that people are having a hard time at the public podium hearing. Now, that's not a contract that we have. We don't deal with that. Frankly, if we did, it would not be a problem, if I could be so bold as to say. But the reality is that they do have needs at Civic Center and there are needs in other parts of the county. So this pot of funding that we're talking about is certainly not something that we want to have total control of. It's just that for coastside needs, we want to be able to have those coastside funds available.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now, regular public comment, which is 3 minutes on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there any public comment that fits that description? Okay, if not, I have a couple of announcements. One was when you came in, there was the notice up on the screen about the public hazardous waste disposal taking place for county residents in Half Moon Bay on what is it? What was the date of that? 6/28. You do have to make an appointment in order to go get your trash or your hazardous waste disposed of. And hopefully you wrote it down when it was up there on the screen. If not, I think maybe Kimberly will put it back in the chat as to where you make the appointment.
Sure.
Just a word to the wise. A couple of things have come up since the last meeting that were confusing the people. Statements that the council members made or statements that former council members made that were interpreted as representing the Midcoast Community Council when they really weren't. And I just want to remind everybody on the council and all the former council members, really be very, very careful about saying if it's your own opinion or not. But also to the community, take it with a grain of salt if you hear one of us say something. I was at some meeting where one of the council members was up saying, I do not represent the MCC with what I'm saying. This is my own opinion. And they sat down, and the next person that got up and said, as the man from the MCC just said, the MCC says this and that. So really, don't take us too seriously, unless we say we're really speaking for the MCC. We're just ourselves. So, and then the thing about Lisa's gathering being moved to Sunday, I think that's important. I hope people will go. Public comment. No, we already said public comment. We don't have any. Okay, moving on to the items on the agenda. The first item is about the landscaping and lighting at Seton Coast site. We put this on the agenda because there's been a lot of uproar about it, at least in the Moss Beach area. For those who don't know, let me put a picture up here. There it is. Okay. That's a part of the hillside on the road that leads up to the hospital. About a month or two ago, this whole area was clear cutted without any advance notice and without any attempt to stabilize the hillside. That action exposed the tall light poles that line that road, which are extremely bright and have been a real problem for a lot of people. So we put this on the agenda because people wanted to talk about it. However, I've spoken to at least 12 or 15 officials in the last week trying to get somebody to come in here and explain what's going on. And I have been unable to get anybody to come in and explain it. I do have some explanation that I can share with you for some of it. And then I would like to know, what should we do about it? I was originally thinking we need to write a letter to everybody involved, Seton, the county, the state, whoever, with our questions and concerns. And we may want to do that, but I'm open to your comments about the situation and your ideas as to what we should do. There is a lot of misinformation about Seton Coast side and what's going on up there. Next week, we're going to talk about urgent care and about some of the medical issues. But this week, I'm just going to talk about the work that's been done and specifically about what we're looking at right here. But to give you just a little bit of more background about what else is going on there. There's several layers of what's happened there in terms of activity, construction, and destruction. First of all, there was the immediate emergency that they had where the building was partially destroyed. And there was a lot of work done cutting down trees, getting rid of damaged equipment and whatnot that was pretty much done because it needed to be done. But since then, there are several other layers of what's happening. The building itself, which I personally think is looking really good. I think they've done a very good job of adapting it to what they're going to need clinically. That is being overseen by the state. There's a state agency called CHAI. The first initials are California and Hospital. I don't know what the A and I stand for, but they have been signing off on everything that's been done with the actual building. That apparently is okay. But then the next layer is the fact that they have no fire hydrants there. They have never had any fire hydrants there. It's pretty hard to run well without any fire control. NWSD is managing that process, and they're working on permits for getting fire hydrants.
It's gonna be ready. Hey, Chris.
I'm looking.
Oh, not you. I meant to Chris.
Oh,
Johnson, please mute.
Yeah. So that's another layer is the water lines that need to go there and the fire hydrants that need to be installed. There's another layer, which was in the news in the last week or so, where they tried to move their sign on Highway 1 closer to the road so that people could see it better. And that drew the attention of NWSD because they were paving over their water lines that they needed to access. And then that drew the attention of Caltrans. So the Caltrans is now involved too. In addition, this thing that we're looking at right here, the hillside needed a county permit. And they did not have a county permit. They do not have an application for a county permit. They do not have an application for a number of these permits. They're all in process. The county arborist has come out and taken a look at this. They're working on getting what I believe is an after the fact permit. And somebody needs to look at stabilizing the hillside, making sure that this doesn't just all come down when it starts to rain. And then the county is also trying to look at the lighting. Apparently there is an exemption for hospitals like there is for fire stations, where they're allowed to have bright lighting. But right now they don't need bright lighting and they have agreed to turn them off. I don't know that they've actually been turned off, but they have agreed to turn them off. And we can deal with the niceties of it before they open, because they don't need to have the lights on at this point. So that's as much as I've been able to track down. Fire, there was a rumor that fire made them cut these trees. Fire did not make them cut the trees. We're not sure why they were cut, but they're not there anymore. And so what does the MCC do with this? I'm personally the most supportive person in the world about them getting this done and getting it reopened. I have nothing against Seton per se, but I do have something against the way this looks and the way some of this has been done. So I'm open to suggestions from anybody.
Do you want public comment first, or?
I would suggest
Could you
Kim
announce-
Hines from El Granada, based on the many lighting projects that have been installed that were not fully dark sky compliant, and knowing that there is a group working on potential dark sky requirements for the county. I know we don't have that, but even if lighting is allowed, brighter lighting is allowed, I think there are examples of other hospitals that do use dark sky compliant and a suite of solutions that help us maintain the coastal ambiance. So that would be one piece of the puzzle worth pursuing.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? Should we write a letter? And if we do, what do we want to say? Somebody,
on the Zoom?
who is it?
some hands, Sid and Dan.
Sid?
Well, since you're asking for opinions, yeah, I hate the look of that hillside. And I think if we do write a letter, maybe we could suggest Go Native or some other local landscaper that uses native type coverage of a hillside like that. The whole coastside used to be coastal scrub, and people brought in, the pine trees that now have pine pitch canker disease and are dying everywhere. And it would be so nice just to have a hillside planted with natives and not a bare hillside full of dirt that's going to probably come rolling down the hill in the rainy season. So I would be in favor of that. That's my suggestion. As far as the lighting goes, I totally wish, hope and pray that they will go with the Dark Skies Initiative. But like you say, they may be exempt. I hope not. Maybe they'll work with us. And I guess I've been hearing rumors that they're just going to sell it. They're not really fixing it up for the coast side. They're just going to put it on the market. Because I don't think they're going to be ready to continue their contract with San Mateo County before the end of the year, the way it looks. And I think that's when it expires. Thank you.
They do have a lawsuit filed against them, which goes to court, I think, in July. So they can't just walk away.
Oh, good, thanks.
Okay. Chris? Chris Johnson?
Yeah. Hi, Claire.
Yeah.
1 second. Sorry. I was trying to do too many things at the same time and I'm unable to unblock my video. So actually this is my best side. So, I just want to say that, the whole ask for forgiveness, not permission is really getting old on the coast side. This was a high profile project. And I guess I'm pretty annoyed that county, whoever planning and building, somebody must have had some oversight on this and allowed this to happen. Steve Monowitz or a zoning officer or something, because there's multiple, as you mentioned, there are multiple code issues and obvious violations here. So I just really, I personally reached out to the planning department, county planning department, asking to politely to speak to someone about this issue. And I was told, and the response was a 1 sentence, we politely decline. So that, in addition to the response that you got, which is everybody, I don't know, ask them, we don't have any answer, is just not acceptable. And if Ray Mueller needs to get involved, as he did last year when he laid the wood on the people that run this hospital with their delay tactics, then that's what needs to happen, because the people that live around there, I really feel badly for them. It's ugly. It's aesthetically insulting, and not to mention the people that live nearby. The last thing I want to say, Claire, is in 2015, Dave Olson and I were part of a project where the county asked us to write up a letter, and it's on the MCC website. I believe the date is 9/15, September of 2015, where the MCC worked with the county to come up with lighting fixtures and number of lumens for those lights that were appropriate for the Midcoast. And those amber colored lights are now in place in El Granada, and they are a striking contrast to the extremely bright lights that are at the fire station and out on Highway 1, which obviously is Caltrans. That's a different agency. So I guess a question that I would have for the county is why were not the same lumen standards and lighting fixtures used for this section of roadway here, or at least some kind of collaboration. I don't know if that's a private roadway or not. I thought it was Marine Boulevard, but maybe it's just the long driveway to the hospital. But those lumens, it's an amber light at 2200 lumens. Just by contrast, I don't know what these are, but they seem extremely bright. And just by contrast, looking at the number of lumens for the light poles at El Granada Elementary, which is later on your agenda, those are at like 3600. So people can expect the lights at El Granada Elementary, if not reduced in lumen and color, to be really, really bright for those people right across the street there. So as to what to do, you got to get Ray involved, and somebody at planning and building has to step up and take some responsibility and do something. That, to me, that's where this is at. This is county, unincorporated county. Thanks for listening, Claire. Thanks for listening, MCC. Appreciate it.
Okay. Just 2 comments on what you said, which I appreciate. I do now have 3 names of people at the county planning department who are involved in this. So that's, and they admit that they're involved in it. So that's a big step in the right direction. None of them were able to be here tonight. And generating a ordinance of some sort for dark skies for the Midcoast is a priority for the MCC, and we are hoping to work on that. It's going to be complicated though because of these exemptions, but that is a priority. I agree with you.
Can I just add in, Claire? Thank you for bringing up the dark sky thing. People have been saying, well, residences are held to the dark dark sky standard, new residences and remodeled residences. Those are design review standards for residential and mixed use. This facility does not fall under design review guidelines, and so that's what I'm saying. It was looked at or approved or overseen by a design review officer with no public involvement. Design review was not involved and will not be involved because of the nature of this property. And so therefore, I feel like it's even more important to have somebody step up and say, yes, I'm managing this project on the county's behalf, and have that person come in and answer some questions of how can this happen? Because the damage is done. The damage is done. All right, I'm sorry. Thank you, Claire.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Yes, I question, what has claimed as an exemption. They can say whatever they want. The fact is that it violates the dark sky, some of the dark sky 5 principles that have been agreed upon by Dark Sky International and the industry. The area is a known low level lighting zone. So there's certain IDS recommendations depending on the lighting zone, which is very low right now in the immediate area. As far as the trees, I think it's simply just a shame as to what happened. Just a catastrophe. I think that as a result, I think that there should be a lot of pressure for them to replant with appropriate trees and ground cover to solve the obvious problem of potential erosion in the future. And also, of course, the loss of the beauty of the of the canopy. So that's what I would recommend that the MCC writes in a letter or talking points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. What about the people on the council? Do you think, what I'm thinking is maybe we come up with a letter incorporating what people are saying and what else we can uncover, and have it to vote on at the next meeting. What else would you guys like to do, or what else would you like to include?
I agreed. Well, first of all, thanks for spearheading, trying to find out what the heck is going on and who's responsible. And I agree with all of our speakers who've voiced their concern about the look of it, the feel that there's been a kind of an end run around local planning ordinance and principles, and then especially just the look of it now. It's just it looks awful. It doesn't seem to be a plan for addressing what the state that they've left the hillside in, and then concern about the lighting issue. We spoke to a resident who lives on, I think it was Sierra Street. It's considerable distance, and they're impacted by the sun glare that's being forced on them. And I think Chris Johnson said it best. He said this sort of like ask for forgiveness later pattern, I think, is just not something that we should be having to endure. And that should be a real thrust of our letter, is to express our concern about having these kinds of projects hoisted on the coast side without an understanding of what the process is, or what their exemptions are, what those exemptions allow them to do versus the optics of what the result of those exemptions have resulted in.
And by implication, I think from what you're saying, we should be calling for more public outreach and explaining to the public what they're doing there every step of the way. rather than just telling us it when we beat down their doors and ask them.
Yes.
I was gonna say, it doesn't appear clear to me that we know what their exemptions are, like, we don't, as Chris said, and you said, Chris, like, I think we need the county to explain to us what Seton's rights are compared to what, before, we can clearly understand where they violated or not. I'm not clear of that, but I would really want to know that from the county, and I think we'll get asked planning to come forward and explain to us what they are allowed to do and not allowed to do.
I think that, I hate to say this, like this is being recorded, I'm not sure the county knows. Because the state is the lead agency on this.
Okay,
And there's carve outs all over the place as to who does this little piece and that little piece. And I think that
interesting.
it's a puzzle, and I think getting Steve Monowitz to come in might be good. We could talk about Silco at the same time. Or maybe we need to go with the state. I don't know.
Maybe we need to go to the state,
Yeah.
escalate to the state.
So I agree about drafting a letter
Mhm.
to include all of these points raised. And I agree that it should be addressed to someone who is the responsible person at the state level and copied to the county.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is I've written down everything everybody said. I'm happy to write a letter. If anybody wants to write it with me, they can. I'm happy to bring it to the next meeting and we can vote on it and send it. Is there anything else anybody wants to add, or we leave it at that? Guess we'll leave it at that. Okay.
Find out.
Good start.
Okay, thank you. This
Thanks, yeah.
is a lot of work.
Yeah, to uncover it.
So,
That'd be crazy.
okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is somewhat related, although maybe happier. Go ahead, Chris.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Our guest is present. So this is an item concerning El Granada School, elementary school, the lighting plan and the sort of the evolution and development and recent changes that have been made to that plan. In part, I believe, to address some public comments and concerns about that. And so we have Roger Ansharta here from Cabrillo Unified School District to give a presentation about the current status of that lighting plan. And
very well said,
Roger.
Roger. Pull that last name off.
Thank you.
Can I plug in somewhere? I'm not sure,
are you on the meeting? Have you?
Yeah.
I mean, your
Sure.
laptop is on the meeting, or are you just concerned about your?
Yes, okay, yeah,
battery?
I'll just share.
Do you want to sit by Mike? You wanna?
Yeah, that'd be good. If we-
Okay.
Or you can
However
stand
you
or
usually
can-
do it. You want me doing it from the audience?
We do it various ways,
Yeah.
but that sounds like it might work for you to sit
Yeah,
at the
we'll sit
table.
over here by the mic.
Yeah. And
Join us.
Thank you.
I want
Okay.
need to find you on the meeting. Then.
See you well.
Thank you.
Join first.
Roger, just to confirm, you are logged on to this Zoom meeting?
Not yet.
Not
I need
okay.
to-
When you are, then I can make you a co-host.
We can just relax for a minute and let you,
Yeah.
we don't have to stare at you.
Fastest way to do it. Midcoast Community Council, both the agenda and so.
Okay. I know I have an email from Chris that has the link in it. I know
Oh.
that, but I can go right to that. Wi-Fi.
Oh, Wi-Fi you need?
Yeah. I see that. Almost there. Tried to look that up, that acronym up also.
Maybe they gave me the wrong information.
Get lots of different organizations, but none of this.
I didn't have a pen when he told me, so maybe I got it wrong. Or maybe he told me wrong.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Down, right?
so my name's Roger and Chuck Shahar. I'm with Banner Construction Management. We represent the district as construction managers, and I've been working with the district for 2 years. We also have Drew Gammett in the audience, who's a district representative. We want to start with just a clarification on El Granada Elementary School's modernization project. So there are 2 phases to the project. Project started design 3 to 5 years ago, and finally last year we were able to obtain DSA approval, and after some time the district found out that they didn't have the CDP permit in place, so that then created another time frame to obtain the CDP for the modernization of phase 1, which is the new building C that's underway right now, and is visible from Highway 1. During that time, the project was designed to modernize the parking lot, remove 10 portables, and then reconstruct a new building that was in place. The old portable buildings were in poor shape. There were materials, as you can imagine, from the 70s. They didn't use the best materials. Things changed over time, more durable, safer. So the new building basically was constructed to create a nice, warm, safe classroom building for the campus. As part of that project, there was also a parking lot renovation, and there was a modernization of the parking lot that was also part of the plan, is currently still part of the plan. However, when we went in for the first CDP, the project and community didn't feel comfortable with releasing the parking lot lights which were being proposed in that initial design. So at that time, the project was bifurcated, and the modernization project started June 5th of last year. We're now a year into it, and plan is to turn over the building in late July. At that time, the parking lot lights again were not 100%. Folks weren't 100% comfortable with the parking lot lights and what it would do to the community. So at that time, the decision was made with the County of San Mateo to proceed with the modernization but separate the parking lot lights and come back a year later. But we were hoping it wouldn't be a year later, but it's become a year after all the exercises we've gone through, to modernize, to adjust the design so that it was more sensitive to the neighborhood and the environment. And after a design that was almost there last summer, a revised design was resubmitted in October. We still weren't quite there, so the district hired a lighting consultant to help the design team with adjusting the lighting, trying to get it to a point where it was more sensitive to the environment and the community. And so what ended up doing is the lighting zone was, the district declared it as a lighting zone that's a little less bright, more common in more rural areas. So they declared it a lighting zone 1, which allowed the district to lower light levels in the campus. And so that allowed us to get to a point where we could be more comfortable, but where people were more comfortable with the design. And the design was 5 light poles in the parking lot, but there was certainly a concern about those light poles being too dark. And anyway, we then worked with the lighting designer for 3 months from January of 25 through what ended up being middle of April of 25, and we're able to come up with the design and declare the parking lot a lighting zone in that area, lighting zone 1, to help with kind of lowering the light levels that were, again, more sensitive to the area. I can share what I've done here is, this document is what is on March 25th. There was a forum that the district conducted the evening of March 25th at El Granada School. It was held in the multi-use room. We invited all the community members from the area. We handed out flyers, walked the street, walked all the local community with flyers, handed out flyers door to door to make sure everyone was able to see it. And so we did that, and then we scheduled a meeting for March 25th during the evening. We invited all the neighbors to come through, and we did a presentation, talked about the lighting and some of the adjustments that were made. And so that's what was shared. And during that time, we handed out note cards for people to write questions. Those questions were written down, handed to us. We responded to those questions during the meeting, and then we also made record of them, and we put them on the drawings per the request of the county to make sure that it's a recorded kind of document that shows everything that has taken place. So this drawing here, or what I'm showing, shows all the questions from the meeting as well as the answers that were provided. And so that's part of what we're sharing with the county to have public record that that's what took place. As far as the design, because I think that's what everybody wants to see at this point, is I'll move over into, it's a little hard to see, unfortunately, from our current from what we're sharing. But if you look at the image on the display, we actually have, although there are 7 what I'm calling zones, there are actually 5 light poles in this parking lot. There are 3 along Santiago Avenue, and there are 2 inboard in the middle of the parking lot, inside in the parking lot. These other lighting zones just represent some other new requests that have been made and trying to create zones for the bollards that are already approved and a part of the project, but just creating lighting zones so that they're on at certain times. They don't, so that they're safe for the campus and those that occupy the campus, and custodial obviously being a part of that at night. And then also, but also being mindful of the neighborhood and having them shut off at a certain time, which will be done through existing lighting controls that are part of the modernization project. But I will start with the 5 parking lot poles. 1 through 5 are the 5 parking lot poles.
Roger, to the extent that you can increase the size of that, I
zoom in.
Be great. And then maybe just really quickly for folks, some orientation.
Sure.
Highway 1, Santiago, et cetera.
Yeah. So hard. Difficult. Mouse. Okay. So orientation wise, the highway is this out of the way, lighting. But this is Highway 1. This is Highway 1, Cabrillo Highway. And this is our main campus of El Granada. As you can see, there's a bike trip. The county bike trail is parallel. This is what I'll call the east side of Highway 1, and then the ocean, of course, is on this side. The existing campus is in this area. This is the new building that's being built. This is the existing parking lot, which has always been there. However, there's been the campus and school community have always felt it was dark, so that's why the lights are being added to the parking lot. And so, again, there are 1, 2, 3 along Santiago. These orange symbols are the actual light fixtures that are in the planters. They're halfway. There's a planter area there that's halfway up the hill. It's not at the top of the hill. It's not at the bottom. It's in the middle, is where the base of the light poles are. And then these 2 light poles, also symbols in orange, are at grade. They have concrete bases that are 3 feet tall to protect them from vehicles. And then from that point up, they're aluminum poles. I do want to mention there was some confusion early on that the poles are 15 feet tall, but there also is a concrete base, so that makes them overall 18 feet tall. Just worth clarifying, because that was something that was realized here recently. The lighting team worked on just going through calculations to make sure that there was uniformity with the lighting and to make sure that it met certain lighting regulations. And so they were trying to abide to, by safety regulations that are part of the IEC, the Illuminating Engineers IES Society. And so they stuck to those standards. You have any questions on the lighting?
I think it would be useful to understand what exactly you feel like the challenges are for balancing safety and the dark sky goals of the community. And I'll start by probably stating the obvious, which is one of the things that makes this site as a school so incredible is its unbroken view of the bay. But that also then presents the challenge of trying to meet those dark sky objectives and protecting the environmental impact that lighting can have on, when you're near the coast and you're unbroken view from the coast and the impact that that has on wildlife in particular who are affected by artificial lights at night. So
one thing first and foremost is all lights are meet the dark sky compliance and the local not requirements but requests of being 2200 Kelvin, so they do meet those requests from the Midcoast Council. The other light fixtures that are being used, such as the bollards, are turtle friendly, so they are made to be sensitive to the environment, and they do, of course, they're all 2200 Kelvin, which does not meet the local requests from the MCC. Other things that are being done as part of this project is all lighting is on, it's a Title 24 requirement, is on 100% lighting control. So they have an electronic lighting control system that's programmable, much like a irrigation system. I'm sure everybody could understand that. But every zone, these 7 zones that we've created, the idea behind those is to take advantage of the lighting and use it when it's needed by teachers, faculty, students, and then custodians, but also program it in such a way that it's not on longer than it needs to be. And so each one of these poles has a control wire going to it that sends a signal and says, hey, you need to turn on or off at a certain time. So we're proposing to in the case of, and we've gone into a lot of detail for the design of these lights. We've added a light just for the custodian at the trash enclosure, so that not all the parking lot lights are on just for dumpster activity. We've created a twist knob type 2200 Kelvin fixture at the trash enclosure that's twist, and it can only stay on up to half an hour, but it's only twisted to be of use when they actually need it. So it's not on without being needed. Also, if you look at lighting zone number 2, our plan is to, and I could go through line by line to share this, but for example, lighting zone 2, our plan is to create a spot there for the custodian so that they could park there at night, and we would just leave lighting zone number 2 lit up. Now, one of the challenges with El Granada is it is one of the campuses that stays where the custodian shift is till 11 o'clock, and they do work that late. So the plan is to have lighting zone 2 illuminated up till 11 o'clock, but all the others would turn off at different times. I can go down the list and the details on the lighting. It's because it's kind of hard. So let me see if I can get rid of that. So I'll just go down the list with lighting zone 1 is basically the lights. Lighting zone 1 and 3 are the same. But so if you look at take lighting zone 1, they're all kind of doing their own thing. That will turn on at sunset and time off at 8:30. Lighting zone 2 would turn on at sunset, off at 11. Now that's the one challenge we have there, because custodian does need it to see where they're going. And I've had the discussions with facilities, and they said, no, we need that light to see what we're doing. That statement was, I need my people to be safe and not trip, fall, other things that.
Could I ask just a clarifying question about that? So is that's not just a light that's on for when they need to go to their car and go home. That's actually facilitating what their custodial activities up until the end of their shift.
The agreement was that they would leave it illuminated so that they could go to their car and go back and forth as needed. Yeah.
Kim?
So I have a few clarifying questions. Is this the time?
Sure. Sure. Unless you want me to go through all the lighting zones.
Would you prefer to do that first, or?
I think it might be best to work through them all. sorry, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can ask when you're done.
Sure. Lighting zone 2, basically, again, that stays illuminated for the custodian. At one time it was basically they all stay lit, illuminated while the custodians are on site, but we discussed it in the meeting and decided to lower it down to just lighting zone 2 so they can see where they're going and be able to go to their car. And then lighting zone 3 is sunset to 8:30. Lighting zone 4 is that would be off. It would be off except for school-wide events. So when there's a night event, then we would illuminate numbers 4 and 5. So for the most part, 4 and 5 stay off. But then when there's a major school, a nighttime activity, say like open house or other activities in the MU, talent shows, we would program those to come on with the scheduling software that we have. Lighting zone 6. This is a new topic I don't think a lot of folks have seen, but this is the bollards, the walkways from. These are bollards along. There's a walkway actually that goes from the parking lot to building C, and that there was a discussion with custodians. We tried to have it turn off at 7, but they do need to be able to. They do want to have lighting on that sidewalk walkway illuminated.
All of the BGs are bollards?
Bollards, yes.
Okay.
And then the other zone of bollards is to the right. Basically, that's the front of campus. Those could turn off sooner, but that pathway would not be used as much after 7 o'clock, and we could illuminate that, but have that turn off sooner. But those are all the lighting zones. Basically, we'd be looking at 1 and 3 being on together, and then the bollards, they have different time zones. 5 zones come on at sunset, but then they all drop off at different times. Yeah.
Do you have a detail on the bollards?
I do. Now the bollards are 100% DSA approved already. They're purchased, sitting in a trailer, ready to be installed, but this is what they look like. They're 16 feet on center.
16 feet?
Yes, yeah.
And what side of the path are they on? Are they on the
they're on the
east or the west?
They're on west.
And so they're illuminating toward the east.
Away from the water.
Okay.
Yeah, towards the east, yes. Any more questions?
So yeah, I have several, if you're ready.
I am.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you. I mean, this has been a lot of work and a lot of progress to get to where the community wanted this project to go, and I think your efforts are much appreciated. I have some clarifying questions, and I think I might have asked some of these questions before, but I need a reminder. So this phase then goes to the Coastal Commission for CDP, is that correct?
That's my understanding. This is the initial step before it goes to the county for approval. They always request the recommendation from the MCC first.
Okay, so it will go to the Coastal Commission.
Yes.
Second question is, you said the height of the poles with the concrete plant containers.
Yes.
I understood the height of the poles to have been lowered to 15 feet, but it sounds like with the containers, they're still 18 feet.
Correct.
Does that mean that they were 21 feet before?
They were actually 25 feet before. 22 foot poles, and we worked to be able to lower them down. it was at one point 22, it went from 25 to 22, withheld at 22, and then there were two separate heights at one point, and then we continued to work with the lighting designer and lighting team. They were able to lower it to 18 overall.
Okay, because that was confusing to me. I was really excited when I heard
Yeah,
15 feet.
No, that was
But
my
it's not really 15 feet.
my oversight, because it was holding for it was going to be 22-foot poles, and then finally at the last decision was 15-foot poles, but there's a 3-foot base, so it is
Just-
actually 18 feet.
That's a significant detail. And so is there any possibility that you can actually get them down to that 15 feet?
We've done everything.
I mean, without they can't be installed without these things that make them higher?
No, that concrete protects the light poles from vehicles, and then it's also the height is actually very important to the designer to maintain the uniformity of lighting that they're meeting for IAC requirements for safety.
Okay. So I know that you mentioned the bollards were turtle friendly lighting. Then
Turtle friendly.
we don't really
On the
have
coast.
turtles here, but
Sure.
what we do have is seabirds
Okay.
and migrating songbirds, other types of birds.
No.
Did you consult or receive any comment from the Bird Alliance or Audubon on the lighting?
No.
Because I would think that would be important, because the lighting, especially that any lighting that flows off property seaward, is going to attract birds, and it can presume, and this is a flyway. This time of year we have pelicans and other birds coming and going. And as we've seen all across the country, lighting can critically harm birds.
So the bollards are turtle friendly and it says animal friendly on the cut sheet. These are 40 inches tall.
So, but then the 18-foot lights, are those going to be shielded so that there's no light that's going to attract birds in?
They are shielded, and so that they are contained to the parking lot. Absolutely. No.
So nothing, you're not going to see
No.
any light from the beach.
They
the
very
shore.
minimal, very minimal based on the shielding that we have. And we do have shielding that prevents it from going onto Santiago Avenue. And then also in terms of the lighting is not on the property edge, it's more centered as you get closer to the water. So it does not bleed outside. And we have photometrics that show lighting calculations outside of the property, so I can share them.
So I'm sure you've looked at this very carefully.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like these are careful calculations, but what I realized is that when it happens in the real world and everything is done, there's always things that you didn't plan for or expect. And so what happens when all this is done and you're standing on that beach and there's a lot more light spillover and than you planned for? How will you mitigate that?
Well, we do have lighting shields, and the lighting is programmed to go off at a certain time, and that's I can say that it's very, very stringent on the times that we have just for as much time and effort that is going in these lights. They're not on very long, but they are very certainly being installed for safety concerns that are repeatedly coming up from the campus.
Yeah.
Not answering your question, but I will say that they are not on for, I mean, basically from sunset to the latest, the center light is really not too big of an impact.
So in the wintertime, that's going to be several hours. And there's also reflection, there's also the magnification of fog, right? So I guess what I'm wondering is if there's a negative impact, once these are all installed and it's all done, is there going to be room to mitigate? Is there going to be room to make changes if there are negative impacts that you didn't anticipate?
They can lower the duration of time, and they can adjust the light levels on the picture. There's some adjustability. Yes.
I just want some recognition here
Yeah.
that if it's dark at 5 o'clock in the winter and the lights are on until 11 o'clock and there are birds collecting, or I mean, birds can be detoured off their path easily by lights at night. And so, these are things, it can impact not just migration habits, it can impact feeding habits, mating habits, all kinds of things. So I just want to raise that
Yeah.
there's the possibility.
Well, there is the one fixture that is being left on for the custodian for their safety, which I do feel seems like it's getting lost quite often in a lot of these discussions. There are people walking through the campus, the parking lot, and there are trip hazards, and if someone falls.
I agree there should be light.
Be mindful, but it's a delicate balance. I get it, but I think that the district is trying to do the right thing for the public, and also be mindful of it is really just mostly safety. And if the lights are something that the district has an opportunity to install now with the current bond measure, and I firmly believe that people will be happy when it's installed, because they'll feel much more comfortable. They're not just rushing to their cars and leaving after events. There's a little bit of time to, get to carefully be able to get to their car and leave. But we can always turn off the light, and the fact that we added a light fixture in the trash compactor area with a timer certainly I feel adds another level of lighting that's safe, that will not stay on. And that was the intent behind that, is to have something more custom so that it's not going to be a blatant light that's on. And if that lighting zone number 2 becomes an issue, it can be turned off. It's communication.
So I do understand the safety concerns, and I've walked through plenty of parking lots at night, and usually the amber lights are just fine. You can see fine, and they are safe.
Yeah.
You can see feet, like many feet all around. So I understand the reason we're getting a particular kind of light is mostly due to some kind of architectural rule or some requirement. Is that correct?
Well, if you were to go there,
I'd like this to be a model, right? To
Yeah.
like push and find ways to make this a model project where we can institute some change in this regard, because I feel like some of these lighting restrictions are industry friendly, not community friendly.
well,
And
Yeah.
to push back on that and to say that, here's a project that proves that this can be done in the right way for the community, and it can meet all the needs of the school and the community. And I think you've gone a long way towards doing that, and it is really appreciated. But I think there's still more that could be done. So I just have 2 other things. How will you ensure that the lighting practices that you're instituting for turning on and off these lights are followed after people come and go over time, right? So personnel changes, the people who originally created this are going to be gone at some point. There's turnover at school, administration turns over, custodians go.
well,
Why do you carry on these best practices so that like 20 years down the road, this happens for a lot of things, but people don't remember this history of this, and they start to replace the lights with brighter lights. This happens all the time. They
you can't do that.
forget that they're supposed to turn them off at a certain time.
I could take that as an example because I like to eliminate some of these things. They're LED fixtures. They're made, they cannot be adjusted in terms of getting brighter. So they're set at the 2200.
So you couldn't make that mistake.
They're factories, they're specially modified fixtures that had to go to the factory to be open, and not just an off-the-shelf fixture. They had to be modified, and it's a special order where they have
Okay.
to actually one by one each fixture modify them to meet the 2200.
That's great. But
Yeah.
is there something in place that will remind people that these are the times that you turn off the
I mean,
lights?
we can Drew, we can do this, but we can make it a board item that the programming is as such for the building for the lighting.
You know, how do you pass
Then-
that knowledge on?
Well,
Like
well,
20 years from now?
The facilities folks are key to, and our plan is that teachers won't be able to operate the system, strictly facilities, who's mindful of what we're going through here, and they understand how much time has been put into this, because it benefits them as well as the campus. They want to preserve this lighting and make sure that it's something that maintained without any complaints.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest something really wild here, and that is that maybe there's a place on campus for a plaque of some sort that reminds them of that has the history of this project and reminds people that there's a reason the lighting is the way it is, and we're proud of how this project came out, and, you know, so that there's some kind of thing that cues people into, this was a good project.
Yeah.
This is why the lighting comes in, you know, it's turned off at a certain time. This is what the school district is striving to do for the community. I think that would be something that would be useful.
And I will say the lighting designer we worked with for this project is a world-renowned lighting designer. He's worked in Santa Barbara and understands the sensitivities of the coast and specializes in this lighting, and has done things like declaring certain areas of the city a lighting zone 1, or reducing the lighting zone so that it was more sensitive to that specific environment. And so he has written a lot of these design standards for dark sky, and has also his name is Jim Benya. I can also provide you with his information so you can listen to him. But he said this is a model installation of lighting in an area like this, and this is what folks should be following.
That's
So
great. That's
we're-
great to hear.
The district has gone over and above what a project like this typically does. And there's been no shortage of effort. There's been no shortage of resources. And it's actually cost a lot of money to get to this point. And I think it's worth mentioning because it's not being realized. And I think the design team is very aware of how important the area is, how sensitive the environment is, and they've shown that in this design.
Well, I just say thank you. Thank you.
We have a lot of people here tonight specifically for this, and you want to make sure.
Yes,
that's-
let's hear from
We've got one speaker slip.
Kimberly.
Kimberly Hines, El Granada. Thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak tonight. And thank you, Roger, for the update on the lighting project. I too appreciate the progress that has been made. That said, the parking lot is nominally vacant of all teacher cars by 7 p.m. Campus nominally, the Dolphin Club is the last active group to leave. And the custodian obviously is there later. If you look on this wall, you'll see Granada Community Park and Rec Center imagery for a future installation. What you don't see are lights in the coastal corridor, not planned for yet. The language that's not been used yet this evening is scenic corridor or coastal corridor. And with that comes what is really intrinsic and wonderful in this community, that is the dark sky. If, Roger, would you mind pulling up the diagram of the light so I can make reference to that in my comment? Again, most of the teachers have departed by 7 p.m. with the exception of the custodian. And of course, there's the occasional exception, but as soon as Dolphin Club is out, cars are gone, especially in the dark and the winter time. I would argue that what you've not noticed is that you have lights on the corner of Palma and the Alameda. An 18-foot pole at item 2 near the trash cans is going to illuminate half of that parking lot. So why would you leave lights 1 and 3 on? Again, now you'll have a light at Palma on the corner that's not accounted for in the diagram, and what you're calling the custodial light pole at 18 feet. You'll have light going back in both directions. So lights 1 and 3 to be on at till 8:30 at night, when from across the street and even down past the Alameda to the Blue House, we'll have line of sight under every single one of those light fixtures. I do understand, I've been told that there is shielding, but the reality is, even with shielding, you are aware of those lights when they are on. And if you, the zone 7 and zone 6, I would almost argue that you flip, well, I would say all of the lights off along 6 by 7 p.m. Again, all of that's visible from the, even though they're shielded, you're going to see that line of light from the coastal trail and the cliff and the highway, just based on this change in elevation from that line down to the highway. So that whole orange strip of 6, I would argue that when campus closes, that strip goes off. And if you, for comfort, and yes, we want the custodian to feel safe and teachers to be comfortable exiting the building, and we don't want them, you know, to have trip hazards, but leave that, the green line of bollards, do leave that on till 7, just as it is. But maybe you put a motion sensor for that green strip of bollards, as well as 2, meaning the tall pole for the custodian. Let that be the one motion sensor light.
Yeah, no,
That way, the majority of it could be
yeah, motion
dark.
sensors were put out of the design because the lighting designer said it would cause too much confusion and the flickering would be constant and end up annoying a lot of people. Yeah, no,
I'm not saying all night. I'm
Okay.
just saying for a limited period of time. Alternatively, find a shorter, like a 12-foot light pole or an 8-foot light pole near the parking places at number 1 and have custodial parking. But
Yeah.
that number 2 at 18 feet, you will illuminate half the parking lot. Thank you very much.
The members of the public.
There's a number of hands up on.
Yeah. I've only got Rogers.
Joe, Steve, Chris. Yeah. Dan.
Yeah, it looks like that order, Steve, Chris, Sid, Dan.
Can I answer some of those things? Because so I did want to mention that in our March 25th meeting, we did bring up the fact that adding another layer of lighting controls and motion sensors was cost prohibitive to the lights, and that we couldn't do it. So I did want to mention that. Yeah.
I was on a work trip and my husband did not get a notice and we live across the street, so.
Oh, no, you were there, March 25th. You signed in. Okay, I'll share that sign-in sheet, but it was the evening. No. Yeah, I can share it, but it was March 25th, yes. No, it will. Yeah. Okay.
Steve?
Steve.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Roger, and the MCC. I'm going to try to be kind of technical, so I don't want to try to go over. Claire cut me off if I'm going too long, and so let's try to be concise. Regarding the 18-foot poles, do we have illumination numbers for the lot on those?
I do have foot candles. If I can share the photometrics if you'd like to see those.
Yeah, thank you. Not right now, but yes, I'd like to make them available, and that would address Kim Hines' previous speaker's concern on, is that going to light up the whole parking lot? I feel like she's right, it will. I feel like that light should be only lighting up, or predominantly only lighting up the little space that the custodian needs lit up. And do we have any quantification on direct light shining off the property generally? You had committed to
we have photometrics that show all the light levels beyond the property line, and nothing's going beyond the property line.
That's illumination level.
If you want to keep going, I'll share that with you.
That'd be great. But also what I asked for at that March 25th meeting, whatever it was luminance measurements. And if you have those, which for direct light shining off the property, like are any of these fixtures going to have any direct light shining off the property?
No, they're shielded.
Ask for spec sheets, please.
That would be luminance measurements if you have those. I think you had committed to trying to put those together.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kim. It was March 6th, not March 25th. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Luminance measurements. If you have those, I don't know if you do, but it'd be nice to have those.
Did you ask for those at the last meeting too?
I did, yeah. At that March, whatever day it was, yeah. I asked for that. And I think you guys said, yeah, we can do that. And that would require a luminance meter, probably done after the lights are in. And but I wanted to ensure all luminaries were shielded, and you said they were. That's great. A luminance meter will kind of prove that. And then
if the light fixture has shielding on it, it's noticeable. I mean, what more needs to be done?
Well, I'll tell you that right across the street at the fire district, they said the same thing. It was in the conditions of approval, and they said no light shining off property as a condition of approval. And oh my goodness, is there light shining off the property? And the response was, well, how do you measure that? How do you quantify that? So burnt once, twice shy. And then to clarify, you said controls on all the lights. Does that include timers and dimmers?
Yes. No. The dimmability is not varied. There's not a lot of dimmability, but yes, they can be dimmed a little bit. Timing wise, 100% controllable. Every one of them.
For each zone, right? For each zone, timer for each zone, one timer for each zone. That's great. That's fantastic. I heard you say earlier factory set to 2200.
No, they're not back. They're 100% custom, and they're taking a long time to be made.
Okay, well, maybe factory set is the wrong terminology, but they're fixed at 2200. So that's a color, not a brightness. So so you can dim 2200 down to whatever.
Okay.
So it sounds like there are dimmers also, though. So if
I'll confirm
someone decides they're not bright enough or too bright, they can be adjusted, I think is what you're saying.
I'll confirm that, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Does that include the bollards, by the way? Are the bollards dimmable?
Yes.
No, Roger, I'm going to jump in here now, and I'm mostly just letting you speak, but nothing on the site is dimmable.
There we go.
Nothing has been designed to be dimmable. The means of control is to just be able to shut it off. The light levels have been designed to such a low level that dimming them almost seems pointless.
Yeah.
Our thought was that, and this was done in consultation with the dark sky expert that Jim brought in, was that if the lighting is too bright at the low level that it's been designed to at this point, it should just be shut off. there's really not much point in trying to dim it down lower.
That may be true if given low light levels. I think that I would accept that. My only caveat there is the lights that Kim pointed out, where you have competing lights. You have street lights and those 158 or 135 or whatever it was along the street there.
Yeah, but those fixtures don't go beyond the property line. I can show you this.
All right, they're pointed in, I think is what you're saying. They're pointed in.
But I don't see any.
Well, why don't you say that louder, Kim? Could you repeat that?
Neighbors along Santiago will have direct line of sight under those fixtures.
But that he has committed no direct shining light off the property. So I think we should be protected against that by the fixture covers, shields. So if it's true that the fixture shields will block direct light coming off those fixtures along the street, then we should be okay.
Is that accurate, Shannon?
That is accurate. And Steve,
Okay.
I know you've asked for that you want to have illuminance numbers. The numbers that you're looking at here, which are foot candles, are actually fairly accurate also at predicting the level of glare that you're going to be exposed to.
Well, these are illuminance numbers, which is something totally different. Luminance is like looking at one fixture and seeing if there's direct light coming off of it.
Right, but this still has some bearing on that. You can see it, Roger, if you look at Santiago Street.
Sure.
I've actually taken this calc out to 2 decimal points.
Yeah.
And you can see at that point, you're at 0.00.
You can see that this whole line, folks, right here is very, very low because these fixtures along Santiago are shielded and they prevent light pollution.
You guys, this is great. If this is for real, these are really good.
This is for real.
Yeah.
This is a computer program that simulates this, so it's not necessarily going to be 100%.
Yeah, I love it. We had this for the fire district, and look how that turned out. All right.
Well, you're working with O'Many Myers, one of the best lighting in the Bay Area. So if not Greater Bay Area. So their reputation is important to them.
And regarding the light number, the custodian lights, 5 or whatever it was, 7. Did you say there was a twist turn to turn that thing on to enable it? Half-hour twist turn?
There's a twist turn on the compactor and trash enclosure, so that when the custodian comes out of the classrooms with their hands full of garbage, they get to that point, then they'll twist that. They'll open the gate and twist it so that the light can go on, and then they can see where they're dumping their things.
That's inside. That number 5 or 2 or whatever it was.
On the sheet, like
it's the 18-footer or no, the
no, it's not an 18-footer. It's a light that's mounted within the trash enclosure. It's not.
Oh, it's not one of those lighting zone numbers. It's not one of those.
No, it's not going to be on a time. It's not going to be on the lighting controls. It's on a twist kind of twist timer that expires after 30 minutes. There's no way that it can stay on longer than that.
And it's altogether a separate light from those 7 zones.
Correct. I can go back to that drawing if you'd like and share that with you if you want to see the detail.
I don't think you have to. I get it now. But that also means
down. Yeah.
It also like reduces, it seems like it provides less of a need for that one that's on till late. I don't know. That's what it seems like.
Can we go to the 3-minute time? Guys?
Yeah.
More
Steve, we need to get to some other commenters also. I appreciate your comments, and if you have more to ask of Roger, perhaps we can put that into an email.
Let me just say one more thing, please. Then is that for a bollards, number 6 bollards. Could we break that up into 2, like 6A and 6B, for the bollards that go behind the school and the ones that go out, so we can control them separately?
Let me, I'll go to that drawing. Sorry. Let's see if I can dig that drawing up quickly. But I hear what you're saying. I had the conversation with custodial, and they really want lighting up to a certain point. I can talk to them about about segmenting that lighting some more and being able, so it's not as,
Yeah, I'm not even saying changing the lights. I'm just saying, let's put them on separate controls. So if
Yeah.
something comes up in the future, we have the
Yeah.
capability technically to treat them
Oh,
separately.
yeah, they are 100% can be controlled separately, each one of them.
Oh, even now. So you could read right now, turn off half and leave half on.
We really are gonna have to move along here.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Sorry.
All right. Thank you very much, Roger. Appreciate it.
Okay, so you're welcome.
Who's next in line? It's hard to see here. Chris, I guess.
Sid and, no, wait, Chris.
Chris, and then Sid, and then Dan, and then we will stop. And if you could keep it to 3 minutes, that would be terrific.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Claire. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Shannon. One quick question. I was not able to make the March 6th. I was laid up with an injury, but are these white lights or are they amber lights?
Shannon, why don't you take that, please?
They're 2200K. You may have heard that thrown around. So they do have full spectrum, unlike amber lighting would, which is only the yellow portion of the spectrum. They're a full spectrum, but they are very skewed towards the kind of yellow and orange end of the spectrum. And we did this because the International Dark Sky Association basically says that what they say is that anything under 3000K is acceptable from a dark sky standpoint, but that the ideal, particularly for wildlife, is to either use amber or to use 2200K. And when you use amber, you end up in a strange situation where anything that isn't yellow looks either yellow or looks like a color that you can't really discern. So we brought this up in one of the early meetings we had, and it was decided that no one really wanted the amber color because they thought it was going to be weird, especially if it became sort of like a community standard. So it was settled on 2200K. So I wouldn't call it white light. It's not going to look white, like a xenon headlamps or something would. It's more like if you have an incandescent lamp and you dim it pretty far down, the color temperature shifts a little bit on incandescent when you dim it.
Right.
So it's when you get to that kind of yellow orange kind of color.
Thank you, Shannon. And we also went with 2200 Kelvin because Dan Haggerty was adamant that's what we needed to go with. So, and there didn't appear to be any kind of options.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to debate whether 2200 is better or worse than amber, although your statement that it didn't want to become a community standard, I mentioned in an earlier comment for a different topic that in 2015, the county worked with the MCC to come up with some lighting standards. And one of those standards that is in place in El Granada everywhere except for the fire station is the amber lighting. So for people to worry that that would become the community standard, that is the community standard for El Granada. It's in place now. And so I'll defer to the experts there that the 2200 is going to be good for wildlife and visibility. However, it just seems that, the amber lights are working well for residential safety and visibility, and they would then match at the El Granada Elementary. I also want to say to Roger and Shannon, thank you. I think we'll have to see how the lights work out, as Steve was mentioning. We heard some of this from the fire department as well, but I'm feeling good about it, and I want to say that that this could be a model project in terms of how you're really trying to listen to the community and make the best decisions, based on what the community input you're getting, and you're really trying to work with that. Based, again, contrasting with the fire department experience, it's welcomed, and I as a community member, I definitely appreciate it. Last comment to like back and forth ping pong, good, bad, good, bad. The last comment though is growing up in a rural community, living in this rural community, Having been on design review where people would bring projects with, you know, porch lights all over the place and 3 lights along the front of their garage. And the common direction was, well, you only really need 1 of those lights in the front of your garage. You don't need 3 for symmetry or whatever else. I would also say, like, okay, I appreciate the thought you've put into this lighting plan, and I think it will be good. However, I believe easily all of the number of light fixtures and lighting could easily be reduced 50% without any danger to safety. Per safety, there's the possibility that something might happen versus the probability that something might happen. So yes, safety is always good, but how many incidences related to lighting safety have occurred over the last 50 years at El Granada Elementary School? I understand it's an opportunity to put in lighting, so let's put in some lighting. But like I said, I fully believe 50% or more of this lighting could go away and it would still be fully well enough illuminated for people to get around without incident, especially since these lights are only going to be on for 2 or 3 hours, it sounds like. So anyways, Roger, Shannon, thank you. I appreciate you listening. Really a detailed project with a lot of good stuff in there, and I hope it turns out well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, good. So we have Sid and Dan, and I'd like to finish this up by 9 o'clock, which is not going to happen. But if you could keep it as brief as possible, we appreciate it. And you've got a lot of detail here. Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, mine's going to be quick because all I wanted to know, since these guys are the lighting architects or whatever for the El Granada School, I remember maybe it was last year or prior to this anyway, the Fairlawn View School had really, really bright lights as well. And I wonder, we going to go through a whole nother scenario like this when they get around to remodeling the Fairlawn View School? That's all I really want to know, if that's already been taken care of. Or you're not
That's
dealing.
a different topic.
I know. Are you not dealing with that school at all right
No, they're
now?
not.
They're
No.
not the same guys.
Not part of this discussion.
Oh, I realize that, but are you with the school district, or they're going to hire
Yeah.
somebody else for the other
Yeah,
school?
the lights at Fairlawn View have been adjusted.
Good. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I did want to say, I'm with Chris Johnson on the amber colored lights. That's what we have on the street lights on all the coastal roadways. So I don't know. It's much better in fog.
Okay, Dan?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Apparently.
Okay, so let's see. For some reason, I'm having echo. I want to say that I agree with Kimberly Hines and Chris Johnson. Let's start out with, the parking lot lights, as far as I understand, are not technically required. It's a wish of the district. The photometric drawings, which are very important, very difficult to read on the screen here, but I did see some high numbers. It was announced that it was acknowledged that this is lighting zone 1, which it's my understanding the zone requirement of lighting is 0.2 foot candles, and I'm seeing along the bollards, especially the strip, that there's some high numbers, well above 0.2 foot candles. I think that the bollards need to be thinned out quite a bit. I understand. Roger said tonight they're currently 16 foot on center. The number of bollards is it's a visual clutter that is going to be visible 24/7, 365. There is an example in Carter Park in Half Moon Bay by the Stone Pine Center. They have a new amphitheater down there, and they have an ADA.
Dan, if I can, the bollards are not part of this discussion. The parking lot lights are. We've discussed bollard lighting and having adjustability of zones, but the bollard lighting is required for egress. And we cannot thin those bollards out anymore. Shannon, do you want to comment on that anymore? But
Yeah, I mean, it was discussed previously. It's a code
Yeah.
requirement.
yeah,
As you stated, Dan, the parking lot area is not really covered by any code in California. It's covered by standards and practices. But the bollards are a code requirement. We will not get a permit from DSA
Okay, that's
if we thin
fine,
those
but
out.
the light level,
you will jeopardize our occupancy if
the
that
light
is,
level.
continues to be an issue.
Why is the light level so high? Why can they not be spaced out more?
The code requires 1 foot candle minimum along that path. Basically, everywhere that we're showing bollards, we're required to get 1 foot candle minimum. And
But
you know,
this
the
is a
physics,
lighting level zone 1.
that's right, but the code in California for, you know, the requirements to light along an exit discharge path don't recognize lighting zones.
Well, they should.
They should. I actually agree with you, but unfortunately they don't.
And they're not dimmable.
They are not dimmable.
This is a problem. Okay, so I want to continue, please. I'm going to run out of time here. So I asked at the last meeting for a visual, a perspective, some type of a drawing, illustration that if you were standing on the sidewalk is what you would see in regards to all of these. How many are there? Over 45 bollards.
Total.
And you know, we were told at that meeting that everything was going to be dimmable, and now we're hearing that that is not true. I think that there should be a motion sensor at zone 2. The custodian, you know, if as far as any concern about that nuisance coming on and off, I think that to the degree that they are off, timed off, that any of this nuisance will be very limited. So I think that you should really consider the motion sensor concept on some of these lights to minimize the overall impact of the lights. Everything should be off unless there's an absolute, true, reasonable, verifiable need for the light to be on.
Dan, we can barely hear you in this room, and we're going to ask you to wrap it up and address any comments that haven't been made yet about parking lot lighting.
I asked earlier if you could hear me, and everybody said yes.
We could barely hear you, but we do need, you need to stop. It sounds like you have not yet put in the actual application with the county for this yet, right?
For the parking lot lights, no, but the bollards are a done deal.
Okay.
They're DSA approved. There's no recourse on that.
Okay.
They will absolutely, we will not be able to occupy the building. I real quick, the motion sensors were something that I know you did. We discussed that at length with the design team, and the concern was with skunks, raccoons, other things that there will be flickering on and off a lot in that area. There's certainly a lot of that type of
if the period of time that they're on is limited, then that degree of nuisance is decreased significantally.
Okay.
Shannon, any comments on motions?
Well, they'll also be, you know, brought up and down. I don't think we would have them go just on and off. The motion sensor doesn't cover as large of an area as the light itself lights. So if you have a completely dark parking lot that someone, say on the custodial staff, is walking towards and trying to safely navigate without, you know, stepping over a curb or something, they're not going to trigger the motion sensor unless they actually kind of walk out into the parking lot.
Yeah, but we need to consider the light coming from the building and other sources.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up if that's okay with everybody. I really appreciate your coming, Roger. I really appreciate all the effort you put into this. It's a huge improvement. I don't think everybody's ever gonna be totally happy, but we'll have to see how it goes. And maybe we'll make some changes, because it is still not a final. And I appreciate Chris putting it together.
Sure. Thanks, Fred.
Certainly
Thank
talk
you.
about lighting zone, or timing adjustments. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. We have,
Yes.
Can we move on?
yes, we can
Would you
move on.
mind? Sorry, we're more than 35 minutes past.
That's what?
Well, I'm saying where we were supposed to be on the agenda schedule.
Yes, but we have one item that was pulled. So we
Yeah,
have a
that's
little leeway.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping that this last item on the agenda will be quick. I'm gonna go ahead and. I think I was gonna go ahead and share this. What's going on? Okay, a couple meetings ago, we had I guess it's between meetings, we got a email from a constituent. This is sort of inside politics stuff. And I responded to it, and which is our policy, or had been our policy, that the chair responds to emails that we get. And the other part of the policy was we do not share it with our response with the rest of the council, and the rest of the council does not respond to the original email. This was done to prevent Brown Act violations and to make things clear as to what was actually MCC statements and what wasn't. There was some controversy that came up after I responded to something. And so I reached out to, there was a request to put it on the agenda that we decide what our policy actually is in terms of responding to constituent email. I talked to the county attorney, who made it much more complicated. What I was hoping for was that we could say, the chair will respond to the email and copy the council, so that everybody would kind of know what's going on. Apparently that's not legal. So after a lot of back and forth with the county council and him saying that his major concerns were that we not violate the Brown Act by discussing things among ourselves, even indirectly outside of a meeting. And also that there was something else he said, I can't remember at the moment. But he was saying that, oh, I know what it was, that the public has a right to communicate with their representatives without hindrance. So I can't say don't respond if it's something that somebody needs to actually talk to their representative on the MCC about. So it became much more complicated than just I'll respond and copy everybody. And what we came up with between me and the attorney was this policy here, or practice, where if there's an email sent to the entire council, we all get a copy of it automatically, we all get it. We have to divide these emails into 3 separate categories as to how we respond to them. And just to spell this out here, if some of the stuff we get is like, who should I get to fix my roof? And if it's that sort of thing that is not under our purview, then the chair responds and says, this isn't related to the MCC, and copies everybody on the MCC. Okay, that's easy. The second category is something that somebody writes in, like Dan has written some things in recently about the lighting at Seton. What we would do in that case is the chair responds, says, this is something that's going to be coming to the council's attention. We cannot discuss it now, but we want you to come and participate when we do have it on the agenda. So we don't get into talking about something that's Brown Act protected. In this case, the chair makes that reply, says, please come when we have it on the agenda, and sends it to everybody, and nobody else does anything. Third category is the tricky one. It's what, like, if somebody writes in about some concern that is probably not planned to be on our agenda, but it's not about who fixes my roof. It's sort of a more generalized policy kind of thing. There's no rule that says, at this point, that says that people can't just nilly-willy send answers on their own. But he suggests that that's really unwise. And it not only is it unwise because it tends to be a knee-jerk reaction, but it's also unwise because it ends up with different people writing different things, all of which are potentially public, which ends up being a Brown Act violation because we're discussing our response to something that's not in public. So what he's suggesting we do with those things is the chair responds to the person that wrote the email saying, and copies all the council members and says, this will be considered at an upcoming meeting. So that whatever we have to say, we say in public. We don't say it privately. And then we put it on our agenda, hopefully very shortly, briefly, and we decide whether the proposed response, which presumably the chair will write, is acceptable to the whole group. And if it is, then it gets sent. At that point, if anybody has another opinion they want to say to this person that originally wrote the email, they can do it. But it's at that point clear that it's not an MCC response, it's a personal response. Does that make sense? You should never ask the lawyers for things.
So that last category, there's still a puzzling aspect to that, which is that if a council member is privileged to receive this communication from the public, and then responds as private citizen to that person. I don't understand why they get to enjoy that privilege of hearing the comment come from the public but then respond not as a council member, but as a private citizen.
Because there is a right of the public to communicate directly and with their representative.
But they've done that, but then the representative is turning around and responding to them as a private citizen, but they're part of this sort of privileged class of people who got to
See the email, see the original.
Yeah. And I don't understand why, if it's a potential item for consideration by the council, just wait and deal with it as part of the council.
He says, and I shared his main email with the meeting materials. You can go back and read it. But he basically says that that's interfering with the right of people to correspond freely with their representatives individually. And he says that he really does not recommend that people do that. That people do write. He does not recommend that people write individual letters back to somebody who wrote to the whole group. Because he said it's usually the longer you're in this business, the more you realize it's a mistake. Because what you haven't heard what everybody else has to say, you haven't heard the other sides of the story, you're shooting off your mouth. But he says you can't actually say they can't do it legally.
But then to Chris's question, then they say he was responding as an individual, then it shouldn't come from the MCC email.
No, it shouldn't. Well,
It should.
actually, what he says about that is there is no law regarding what email address you use. But we could make a policy about that.
You have a policy.
We could reiterate our policy about that.
That you should not. Yeah. Come from.
We talked about this at
Yeah.
the beginning of the year. We have 2
Yeah.
pages of policy.
Yeah, okay, so let's change this last paragraph to reiterate that they shouldn't be using their MCC account to send this personal email.
I would never do it because I feel like I would be perceived as hijacking the conversation that was meant to be between a member of the public and the council as a whole. That's why I would never do it.
Well, that's probably wise.
Okay, thank you.
And so then, how will we know from the incoming emails what is going to come forward to a public meeting versus addressing?
As I see it, whatever email we all get as a group, the chair will respond to, and they'll respond in one of these three ways. Nobody responds to anything until we actually sit here and look at them. But you will know which category these things our emails fall into by what I or whoever the chair is responds to them with. Like if I respond with this may be on an upcoming agenda, I hope you participate, then that's the end of it. And you'll get a copy of that. If I say this is going to be on we'll look at this at our next meeting, then you get a copy of that. That's how you know. Was that your question?
Yeah, so then you will agendize anything that you feel needs to be, it won't be an open, it will have to be agendized.
Kimberly and I were thinking it was kind of like at the end when we do council activity, if we have something we need to look at that's an email, we'll put the council activity and correspondence and do it fairly quickly. Because I don't want to spend a long time on it.
Okay, I mean, I would just be concerned that once you open that up, then you have to allow the public to comment, and then it could
be a long time.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying, to just not agendize it, then to put it at the end, it could.
Oh, I don't think it's, I don't foresee it as an agenda item. I see it as here's something we need to look at and decide about.
Oh, not to discuss it, just to say.
It'd be attached to the meeting materials. And we could, I don't know, we can work out how to do it, but I was just thinking it would be fairly brief to say, here's this letter, which everybody, of course, has read before the meeting. And here's the proposed response, which everybody has read before the meeting. And is that okay?
So you will have generated a response already.
I think I probably have to. Otherwise, it'll take all night. But it could be changed if people disagree with it.
Okay, sounds like a convoluted process to me. I'm not quite following, to be perfectly honest. We'll go into the end of the meeting versus an agendized item.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking. Because we have enough other things to talk about. I don't know, what do you think? I kind of don't like it.
Kimberly's
But,
trying to speak. Go ahead, Kimberly.
well, I want you to finish your.
No, I think I'm done. I guess so.
So there's three things that sort of bother me that I'm worried about. We went through a whole process discussing some of this at our last policy, which, discussions which dragged on, and we settled on the process that we have now. And one thing I remember that community members and a former member of this council at the time was concerned about is that if we brought community correspondence into this meeting to talk about it before a response is sent out, then we'll have to be careful not to disclose who sent that to the public. I mean, then we're taking a correspondence that went to the county, to the council, which is arguably public anyway. But we said we would take care not to disclose that to the general public, right? That if somebody shared something.
That to Tim Fox said it doesn't matter. Or we can have our own sub policy.
That's the thing, right? Maybe legally it doesn't matter, but is that something that our constituents are concerned enough about that we should pay attention to it? So there's that. The other thing is, I mean, to be honest, I'm perfectly happy with the process we've had up till now. I think that was the same process that Gus as chair followed. I think it was the same process that Greg Dieguez followed, and maybe other chairs followed the same process, being the point person to respond. We all get to see the email, and maybe just something letting us know that it was responded to is important. And knowing the tenor of that response, but I don't feel like we have to discuss every single response that goes out to a constituent unless if it's something complicated related to something we're going to be discussing in this council anyway, then it's an agendized item. So that sort of puts it in a different category. And then the last thing I will bring up that is really disturbing to me is that the way this was brought up, I think, was not respectful of the chair. And it concerns me that I think we kind of need to deal with that in that, none of us should be assuming somebody's doing something secretly, just assuming the worst in terms of process that we've been following and then bringing that up in a way that questions, I guess, the transparency. So I'm not articulating that well, but I think that's also concerning to me about why we're discussing this at all.
I was thinking that we could solve this whole thing by having the chair respond and copy the rest of the council. And I still would prefer that. So it's really up to the council if we do that or do what Tim suggested or do or something else. We don't have to do what Tim says. I don't think anybody's going to sue us. If we, so
I just prefer the chair respond and then all of us just commit to not responding to your response.
apparently we can't enforce that, but we can have an expectation like that.
Any of us up until now, emails come in. It's something one of us might be interested in. We might respond directly to the person and say, hey, I'm just making this up, but this has happened. And say, hey, I, as an individual council member, appreciate your letter. And I also am concerned about this situation and thank you for bringing it up. And then that doesn't get copied to anybody. It's between you and the constituent. There's no reason this hasn't happened before. I know it has with various people. And there's not a problem with that. And then nobody knows about it but the person who received the email and the person who sent it out. And they're not representing the council. They've been clear that they're representing themselves.
Now, you were talking about something that they sent to the whole council or something they sent to you?
No, a letter comes to the whole council.
No, this is what we're sort of saying, that people can't do that.
Well, I don't think it's saying that, right? I think what we're saying is people can't respond to the whole council and to a constituent on behalf of the council. What we're not saying, what it's not saying is that you, just like if you're walking down the street and you meet somebody in the neighborhood and you talk to them about something and they bring up something that's MCC related, you might say something like, hey, I understand what you're saying. I support what you're saying. I, as an individual, will support this. Or, as a council member, I support this, but I'm not speaking for the whole council.
But what if you, instead of saying what you just said you were going to say, said, I think you are out to lunch?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, at some point, we can't, we can all assume we're going to act with decorum and decency.
You can't assume that.
In the public realm, but we can't control everybody and what they do.
The example that you gave, though, random encounter with somebody on the street or the post office or whatever, is limited to an exchange between two people.
Right.
It didn't start
Well, so
as
that's
a conversation that member of the community initiated with the council as a whole. So there's no possibility that you could be construed as speaking for anybody but yourself, because you're the only one there. And you're the only one that heard what they just said.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is you're relying on the fact that you're going to say, I'm responding to you as an individual. I'm not responding for the council.
But do you remember what I said at the beginning of the meeting about how people don't hear that?
Well, we have a problem with that generally, not just in this context.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to do at this point. If everybody feels strongly that we need these further policies, I'm happy to go with that. But I'm like Gus. I kind of feel like we have all these policies already and it's pretty obvious, and I'm happy to stick with what we were doing.
I'm happy to stay with what we were doing, but I need the council to say that that's what the council wants.
I'm fine with it. I don't think we need to change. I mean, if everybody wants to, it's fine, but I'm like, I don't think there's just respond to your chair, respond to the emails, and all of us just back off of the typing.
I think it depends on, in theory, yes, I think it though does depend on the subject matter to make sure that there's some guardrails about what you would say is agendized versus something that the chair could just respond to. I guess there could be a gray area there where maybe a chair would respond in a way that not all the council is necessarily aligned to. Then what happens?
Then it should be brought to an agenda item for us to discuss if there's.
So then you have to respond. You would have to put an email forward saying, this should be agendized, and you will need to.
No, any of us can.
No, I'm saying anybody can.
We can, an
the
email comes in and you would email the chair and say, I'd like to agendize this item. You don't send it to the entire council. You just send it thing to the chair, say, I'd like to agendize this.
So I'm saying if the chair responded in a way that you did not agree with, or think it should be agendized, then who are you responding to? You're responding
Only
to
the chair.
everybody?
Only to the chair,
Only to the chair.
Why only to the chair?
because it
Why would that-
violates the Brown Act
Yeah.
to correspond with everybody.
About something that's gotta come to a vote.
But if the chair's already responded to the constituent, how is that violation? Because they've already responded as though it's not
That's
something
not
going
the
to.
violation, the hypothetical response you just laid out is where the violation begins. It wasn't a violation, but what the chair did in responding, but saying.
I
think we
want it
should be-
agendized.
I want to agendize it, when it has, that request hasn't happened here, but is now happening amongst all of us at once. That's the point where the violation begins.
Which also clarifies why all communication between MCC council members should not be copied to all members of the council.
Well, that, not, well, it depends on what it is, doesn't it?
Depends on the subject matter.
For example, here's a subject matter.
That's why I said all communication should not necessarily be copied to all members.
Oh,
Because of what Gus just said.
you're not saying no communication should be canceled.
I did not say that.
Okay.
Okay.
This is all generated by somebody who had a complaint. So, and I said I would try to resolve it. So. Once again, what are we gonna do?
Well, I'm happy with what you have been doing, what you did, what Greg did. That seemed to work. I can operate under this scenario as well because I know what my personal practices are going to be. So it works for me either way.
Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I
Okay.
think there's a critical question here. What are you most comfortable with, Claire? I mean, are you most comfortable having this? I mean,
I can do
it gives
this.
you some cover.
I don't like it. It's too much, it's too complicated.
I do think though that, I'm sorry, sorry for being late. Are Scott and Kevin on this? too?
No.
No, they're not.
Then I don't think we should I don't think we should make a formal decision on what our communication policy should be
Without them.
without them here.
Okay, if you want to defer it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree. I was gonna say, I didn't think we were gonna vote on them.
Okay, so that's the end of that.
Okay.
Council activity.
Take it to the next meeting.
We do have an invitation to go to MWSD tomorrow and learn about Seal Cove. There's room for one more person to go if they want to go. It's around 12:30 or what? Yeah, I know neither of you can go. Okay.
Are you interested, Tom?
Pardon me?
Are you interested?
You go to MWSD tomorrow? I don't know, like, what time is it?
12:30 or 12:30.
I don't need to go. Oh, no, I can't go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Somebody at my house, so. Till 12:30.
So I have to go so I can write my newsletter article. So you want to follow up on that?
You mean chase after you to get it? Is that what you mean by that?
I mean, like, should we talk about how are you getting let?
Oh, no, I haven't gotten any submissions yet, so I that was my private forecast. I'm like, okay, so if the deadline was 2 meetings from now, I mean, nothing will happen between that meeting and this meeting. So everybody please, so deadline is next meeting, so give me drafts of your articles.
Any other council activity?
I met with Crystal and on the for the public outreach. About the community calendar with a couple other community people. And she has they have a pretty robust calendar that's open to the public. You do not have to be a chamber member. And it's an opportunity for us to potentially leverage that, because she pushes out through their social media platforms in a very sequenced and thoughtful manner about upcoming meetings versus, legislative decisions that come through. So I asked her to come and meet, since Kevin and Scott and I said we would subgroup on, outreach to come and speak to us, because none of us could make that meeting today. So I was gonna try to coordinate it with Scott and Scott and Kevin tonight, but obviously neither of them are here. So we'll follow up more and then come back with more information about what's an opportunity to think that we could potentially leverage the coast side 365 calendar. She's willing to break it out in ways that we talked about previously. So
I think people are starting to work on things that will probably end up agendized.
Yeah.
You're working on couple of things, I think.
yeah. Oh yeah. The other thing that I did reach out to Leo, I forgot his last name now.
Gomez.
What is his last name?
Gomez.
That's right, Leo Gomez, on the an update for the document that was produced back in 23, on the telecommunications. And Greg also saw some of that. So I asked him if he would be willing to update that, take a look at it again for what might be more low-hanging fruit of opportunity for us to go forward with pushing, particularly since the CAL FIRE maps have been updated and many more people are in high-risk zones now than previously were. So he agreed to do that. And then I reached out after I saw the response from the CRISP initiatives. So I think 4 or 5 of them were related to the telecommunications issues, and some were in this category A and some in category B for funding. So it looked like the Montero towers that the community was supporting were in category A, and the redundancy is in category B. And I've heard from a number of community people have expressed concerns about those big outages we've had over the last couple of weeks. So I think it's a good opportunity to start to try to push that forward again. And see if Leo can help update that, to what's going on, if there's changes to that original document. It's pretty extensive. And Greg offered to chime in. They had a working group, so they no longer meet, but maybe we can get them started up again. So hopefully I can get that moving and we can agendize that again for him to come forward with potential opportunities, especially with the response on the CRISP initiatives.
Which kind of leads into future agendas. Right now, we think we have a scheduled Caltrans coming to talk with us. But mostly about the bypass lands, which they are starting to do some serious work on. And also the urgent care center is in big trouble. Mostly not because they don't have enough patients, but because of other financial problems. And we may have some impact on that if we choose to. And so people from Dignity and possibly Seton and possibly the county will come talk with us about that next time. There's also a thought that I'll get your opinion on this, as to whether we should have the CARES program people come talk to us at all, because they're in big trouble. And they do represent us, they do cover us, supposedly. And we might have some impact on their future just with another letter too. So what else are people thinking? Like, we suggest we have to come back to this policy thing.
This is not necessarily future agenda, but Martin and Naya here earlier asked for a letter. Did we concretely decide we can't deliver one?
We decided we cannot deliver.
Okay.
But you did say you could write individual letters.
Yeah, which would be a good thing.
Yeah, we wouldn't have time before the meeting.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
issue.
Well, they're trying to make sure they have enough funding to continue to cover us. And it's coming to a vote with the Board of Supervisors on the 10th.
I mean, we could just write a one paragraph or a couple sentences letter saying it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could just be simply, we support funding for PCTV.
It's not on the agenda,
Okay.
but I think it would be great if we all did it. Okay.
Suggestion for future agenda?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just repeat what I said the last meeting, regarding the loss of parking at Surfers Beach for, visitors and community members.
Okay, that's certainly. We've got a long list. I'm just hitting the highlights at the moment. But that would,
Will that come up?
when will that come up? I don't know. It's pretty complicated and I don't know exactly how we want to approach it. We certainly on the radar.
Well, it could be, doesn't have to be a one and done type of thing. You know, having community communication and discussion about this would be a good thing in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
I think if we could ask Caltrans, there's probably two different people on this thing, but if it's possible to ask them to talk about that next time, that would be helpful because there are ongoing conversations and at some point these are going to be out the gate and we're not going to be able to influence anything that happens. And these conversations are progressing rapidly with the Harbor District. My understanding is the Harbor District, Caltrans, and Half Moon Bay, City of Half Moon Bay, which is why I asked Deborah that question earlier. And they are making, you know, I don't want to say decisions, but they are making decisions along the way to move some of these things forward with individual projects that the community is not very happy about. So we should probably have them come talk to us if they're willing to.
Caltrans?
Or City of Half Moon Bay. I mean, City of Half Moon Bay has a lot of sway in this instance because they have jurisdiction over that small strip, right? And their big concern at one of their council meetings was Sam's, right? They didn't care about the Burnham Strip or anything. What they cared about was doing anything that helped Sam's. This was verbalized in a public meeting. So, you know, I think
Recently that was Kendall.
within the last few months. And so I think, you know, having one or two agenda items where we get these stakeholders to come and include us, because here we sit at ground zero, but we're not being included in these conversations that are going to decide what projects move forward and how they move forward.
And apparently we have to invite Half Moon Bay staff and not the council, not Deborah Primrose, the staff, because they're not, staff's doing one thing and it's not sharing it with the council.
Well, no, council members are aware because it was a council member that verbalized this at a meeting.
They did not verbalize it with a depth of understanding.
In that one instance, probably not. But nevertheless.
Well, the bottom line is Half Moon Bay city staff has more power than than the council as far as, you know, I mean, they're making discussions and decisions ahead of the game.
It's 9:40.
Yeah, so we can't discuss this now, but I'm suggesting that we really need to get this on the agenda and be part of the conversation. We need a seat at the table. These issues are important enough that we need to find a way to have a seat at the table and be taken seriously.
Well, we've been talking since the beginning of the year about what's the best way to do that. And anybody that would like to sit down and sketch it out and decide who to invite and how to do it is welcome to do that. Right?
Can I ask who's talking to Caltrans about the meeting that they're coming to? Because
Yeah.
aren't they due to come out with a report by the summer on what's
I was
happening?
in June.
Yeah, so we're right there.
We're right there, and it's really hard to get them to come. But I suggested they come take a victory lap and tell us what they're doing with the trees, which I'm sure that people will take exception to some of that too, but I kind of had to entice them to come. And I'm happy to say, look, while you're here, we would like to have you comment on these other things, and I will do that. I don't know if they're really willing to.
Well, I think that's 3 different topics, right? So it's the bypass, which is what you've agendized. It's the multi-asset rehabilitation road project. And it's the, which is the Surfers Beach parking. And then it is the Highway 1 plan for Surfers Beach going forward. So those are 3 different.
Well, there's another one too, which is the Moss Beach Corridor Project, which we think is about to be axed. So, there's a lot going on.
Also the multimodal trail going from Coronado to Capistrano, which was always on the books. But for some reason, it's just kind of like being forgotten and not addressed.
But they just had a meeting.
Oh, really?
I thought I saw that, yeah.
So-
They invited people.
So
I
maybe
didn't see that.
some of this is a county update. Maybe that's something that Ray or someone from the county can come talk about.
If
If you can get them.
Well, Len could have been here.
I couldn't do anything about that. Caltrans, obviously. But, I do think we need to have a dialogue with City of Half Moon Bay that this impacts us.
I'm sorry. What we said at the beginning of the year is that this is a complicated process here, a complicated area. Someone needs to pull all the pieces together, all the actors. I think we said the MCC doesn't have the clout to do that. Perhaps we do. But I'm not sure.
Well, we could invite, it started, right?
Yeah, we may not have the clout to bring all of them together, but what we can do is keep asking for a seat at the table to be part of these conversations because they're deciding things that impact our community here. They're not here. They're benefiting from what we will have to live with.
Agreed.
Yeah, so maybe it's a series of invitations to.
Just what people would kind of like to do, that'd be fun. Okay. The county should be included too, because some of this can't happen unless the county gets on board.
So would it be helpful to draft a letter and copy all of them at one time? So that they can all see that
think
we're
we did
asking
that,
all
right?
of them? We're asking all of them to come?
Might make it worse.
I tried that with the Montara road improvement thing and got crickets, so.
I think people like to be singled out and.
I think it's important to understand. I think it's important to understand that the county is supposed to work for the community. And so I think that the county should be at the lead on this.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate thing. We can perhaps get it started or help them, but.
Well, I think it's good to ask, and if we don't get any reaction, then we ask the community to mobilize and show up at the meetings and start asking, right? I don't know any other way to do it. If we're not gonna get a response and they're not gonna answer to come and speak, then we have to ask all the community members, and that's part of our outreach to say, we're gonna need you to get in and sign those petitions or whatever they said they need, and, get them to show up at the meetings and do public comment.
Who'd you like to invite first?
Well, why don't we go to the top and go to the county, since they may know more than across all the agencies.
Well, I think we're looking at the Harbor District, the county, Caltrans, Half Moon Bay, who else? Other people? GCSD.
Blair, could you explain what you meant when you said you thought the Moss Beach corridor plan has been canceled? Because Midpen needs that in order to get their ingress and egress. I heard it at the fire department meeting that they can't, get their permits approved until they get better ingress and egress.
I don't know what's gonna happen with any of that, but, and I could be wrong, I'm just sitting here spreading rumors. But I heard that their funding was axed.
How does that impact Surfers Beach?
She's on a different topic.
I'm talking Moss Beach corridor, which is what Claire mentioned. That's okay. I'm not.
It doesn't.
Maybe you can find out, but I heard that they lost their funding.
Who from, Ray? I don't know where they possibly.
Where they're from. See, I'm doing what I say you should never do, which is spreading rumors in public.
Oh, it's not a rumor. I was just trying to find out if I didn't hear that was even possible. Said they were going to complete the project by 2030. Now you say it might be canceled. So I just want to know. I'll research it. Bye.
Hey, let us know. I think we should.
Should
go
we
home.
adjourn?
What?
With that.
Yes.
Let's adjourn.
All right, good job.